it's so great, and it's my absolute pleasure to be moderating this wonderful meeting with Caro, and I'm here with my dear friend Donna Carrick, and Donna Carrick is being our techie guru at the moment, and so we're going to get started. And tonight we are talking about Marlo's Dance, which is the fourth book in the Planet Mercurian series. And I want you to tell us, first of all, about the planet, and how did you decide, what is the world like, and how did you decide what went into the world?
Well, I decided that what the kind of planet that I would like to make stories about would be a planet where all of the heroes and the superstars are people in the arts. I mean, really, I'm kind of tired of all these hockey players and people, you know. Why should they get all the glory? No, we should have dancers, singers, writers, etc., getting all the glory. So this is what happens on the planet Mercurian. They are the stars, the big stars that everybody just swoons over and follows about, and they are. That's the big thing. That's one of the interesting things that I wanted to do. I wanted it to be colorful. I wanted them to be emotional. I wanted them to be very aware of their world and of other people and all the rest of it. And of course, there are aliens in there. But I have to say that although I call it science fiction, there's absolutely no science really involved. Things just are the way they are. And sometimes the technology breaks down. Who knows why? Because it does. And I'm tired of all these SF things where everything works perfectly. It doesn't, as we know, such as today when I can't see anybody, but never mind. So that was sort of the rough idea. And my main characters were dancers in the earlier books. The first three books were really more of the sort of space opera type of story. And the first book, The Danger Dance, is sort of a political thriller, basically. And it takes place mostly on a huge spaceship. And they stop periodically here and there at stuff, and all sorts of things are going on, and it's quite exciting. So it really is a sort of a thriller. The second one is on another planet, is the Abulon Dance, and it is where they go to another planet, and the main character here is Benny, who is the supposed, he's always getting pushed in to do things that he doesn't necessarily feel good about doing, but nevertheless he does it. So he is the cultural ambassador to Abulon. Finally, in the third book, we actually get to Mercurian. And this too is the first time you actually see the planet where these people are from and interact with them and all this, the story that happens there. So when I got to the fourth book, this is something completely new. So the first three are one kind of story. And the third one, Marlo's Dance, is the first actual mystery.
Okay.
And sort of that's, I thought, okay, this will be, I began to wonder about what would it be, what are the laws actually like? Because so far we haven't come up against the laws in the stories on Mercurian. So what would that be like? What would the system be like? How would you actually police these people who really don't want to be policed? Because there's pleasure-loving hermaphrodites, actually. Dual gender.
Are they all hermaphrodites? Like, are all the characters?
Single one of them. Mercurians all are, yes. So that was the now this one and the next two are actually mysteries as well. So not that they're out yet, but they will eventually.
So you're writing more in this series. So we have two more coming out after Marlo's Dance. That's awesome.
Yeah, the next one's coming out next year.
Okay.
And I'm finishing up the third one. At least I'm trying to.
Okay. So if I were to start reading the series, would I have to start at book one, or could I start with Marlo's Dance?
You could start with Marlo's Dance. You could start with any of them, actually, because each one of them is complete in itself. There is no real overarching story. So one book is complete. So the only thing that is kind of fun is if you do start at the beginning, book one, it's chronological.
Okay.
So, you know, people's love life will change and that sort of thing. And you sort of say, oh, you knew who he was with last time. But it doesn't really matter. The story is complete in itself, which I wanted to do that because I like reading series books, but I don't like to, when I get to sort of, oh boy, everyone's talking about this book, I'm going to read it. And they're talking about things that I don't know what happened before.
Right.
This time I don't. I will just say things like, oh, remember that awful time we had on this ship going to Abulon? And the other guy will say, I don't want to talk about it. And that's it.
I got to remember that.
You know, I don't want to give anything away. So nothing is given away in any of the books. So you can read them all without spoiler alerts anywhere.
Excellent, excellent. So tell us about Marlo, more about Marlo and what he's like and why you sort of wrote the first three books were more like the space opera, but then now we're moving into more like a cross genre, which is like crime and speculative fiction. So is Marlo, so the next three books are they going to be about Marlo? And so how is he different from the other characters in the book?
Well, he's quite different. He came about rather strangely. I mean, it's sort of a little interesting story, at least I think it is, because I only thought about Marlo because I was talking to Cheryl Friedman one day, who's up here somewhere, and she was writing or thinking about writing a character named Marlo who was what's that little guy? Cheryl, what are they? Ferret, thank you. I couldn't remember the name. So her Marlo was a ferret, and he was, and so we were talking, and I was trying to sort of get her to sort of get at it and start writing it. And then I thought, okay, well, look, I'll write one too. I'll write a Marlo, because I suddenly thought, wait a minute, I could do a Marlo, only spelled differently, on Merculian. And the more I thought about it, the more I liked it, because once again, how does basically the police, the whole way of policing this planet, how does it work? How could it work? So from that little conversation, this whole thing just sort of blossomed. And I thought, all right, I will think about Marlo as the original Marlo, for instance, and do a sort of a noir character, only he's Merculian. So obviously he's not terribly noir, but nevertheless, he does have the tragic backstory. It's very sad.
Are you allowed to tell us this, or should we read the book first?
Oh, it comes all the way. You just hear about it. His lover died and he thinks he was responsible. This is basically the general idea. And his lover was a thief whom he was supposed to arrest, but he fell for him, so he couldn't. They just went off and hid in his house for a while. And so, there's that. So it's all got a little twist on it because, of course, he's not really hard-boiled at all. And they're also touch empaths. So they're very emotional. And if you touch somebody, you can feel what they're feeling. And then, of course, that gets them into trouble. So there's no sort of hard-bitten stuff about him, although he can be if he really tries hard. And then he feels guilty. But anyway, also, I thought, all the other characters that I've written about, they're dancers, they're singers, they're svelte, they're beautiful, they dress beautifully and all the rest of it. Marlo is quite the opposite. Couldn't care less what he wears. Picks stuff off the floor, puts it on, buttons fall off, bits of his wardrobe unravel as he gets caught in various activities. He doesn't care. And he's quite plump, shall we say.
Oh,
so he loves to eat. This is his big thing. He really enjoys food. So he's quite, most of the others, they're so busy thinking about the art of the dance or whatever it is they're doing, they don't really think about it. And he notices this about them. And you think, when do these people ever eat? I never see them eat. So, it's quite a different kind of a character from the others, from most of the others. And so but his big thing what's the word that I want? The thing that he relies on a lot is he has a great memory for faces. So this comes in very handy because he'll see somebody whom he maybe arrested 5 years ago, and he remembers them right away. And he'll see somebody else who reminds him of somebody, and he'll realize that's the same person, but they've dyed their hair, this kind of thing. This is basically like my husband. He's like this. He can remember everybody. We'll be watching a movie on TV. He'll stop it and say, now that person played such and such in so-and-so 40 years ago. I mean, I don't care. But I thought, that would be really good for a cop to be able to have this. And it comes in very handy for Marlo.
I'm curious, though, what the Mercurians and what does Marlo look like? Are they humanoid or do they?
They are. They were, because I started it. As I say, I don't really go in for squishy aliens and all that sort of thing. They're not really aliens at all. Basically, they're just people, only they're small. They're smaller than us. They're,
Okay.
5 feet is really big for them. So that's it. They're just basically people. It's not, that's what I mean. There's no real actual science involved here. It's all about, for me, it's all about actual character more than anything else, and what the relationships are like and what they feel, and how does this get them into trouble because they feel deeply or whatever, So that's all.
Okay. So I have to ask this question, knowing about your other interests and your other genres that you this question isn't one you gave me, but my curiosity is overcoming me here. How do they make love? Like, how do they make love, especially if they're touch empaths?
Well, you've got to read the books.
And do you have sex? Do you have sex? Do you have sex in the books? I hope there's lots of sex.
There is in the earlier ones. Marlo, not so much. I mean, the sex in the Marlo books are sort of just fun. Because he eventually meets somebody who's very fun loving, and he likes to play, and it's that sort of light kind of sex. The earlier books, on the other hand, really get into it.
Okay. Well, being a touch empath, I guess it would be pretty exciting.
Well, yeah. So they can. I think it would be wonderful in some ways, unless.
Join us for a brief reading of Marlo's Dance by author Caro Soles, now in progress.
Cutting through a low murmur of voices, Marlo began to run. Right through here, the guard said, motioning to her left. Marlo almost collided with the woman as he skidded around the corner and directly into the huge stage. Harsh working lights illumined the space. The complicated set, a series of steps and long planks at different levels, casting sharp shadows on the floor like some menacing alien structure. Several security guards and a few stagehands stood around. A small, crumpled body lay half crushed beneath the towering set of discs and planks, his face turned away from Marlo. The scene blurred around him.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Caro. You've got such a great voice.
Oh, I also wanted to
say. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to explain that every book has to try to explain this, that they're all referred to as he, and it's because of a technical problem with the translation of their real pronoun. So it sometimes gets a bit confusing, but that's what it is. But they're not.
And he appears in A Grave Diagnosis, and the story in A Grave Diagnosis is just wonderful, by the way. And you have something else that you can read to us, I believe. You have something else prepared?
I have another one if you want, unless you want to talk about it, something else.
Please, yes.
Well, okay. I'll read the other one a little later, but let's see if I can. There are other Madeleine asked about, what they looked like and all the rest of it in their base. I do have so-called aliens in the book as well, in the other books, but mostly they're fairly humanoid. And we have Serpians who are, so I think they're in, Tharvon is mentioned in the story in the anthology, The Grave Diagnosis, and they're sort of pale blue. And their hair sort of moves around by itself, and they're very standoffish and, law-abiding types. And then we have the illusions, who are sort of green, and they are from a very moist planet, so they're always pouring lube over themselves. to try to sort of get, moisturize, as it were.
Mhm.
I kind of like them because they're fairly jolly types, but they don't really want to get involved much. And if they do, they expect something in return. They help you, you follow, but then they just stand there until you sort of give them a present of some sort, a lanyap of some sort of thing. So that's the way they are, and they're sort of basically around as well. And they are the main ones who are in the books in Marlo book anyway, that he sort of comes in contact with. So that's sort of it as far as aliens are concerned. I mean, there are a few more that are mentioned, but there's nothing sort of wildly exciting about them.
Mhm. What's the main difference between Marlowe's Dance and the other books? What is the difference?
Well, it's the first one, which is all from one point of view, as I mentioned. So it's all Marlo all the time. And
Mhm.
he is a brand new character to the reader as well, because he hasn't appeared before anywhere. So he hasn't met the other characters either in his work. So he gets to meet people like the super stars of the theater and get his own idea about what they're like. He's a bit overawed by some of them, especially the singers, although he doesn't, so they don't really come up much. It's mostly the dancers, but he is. And apart from that, it is an actual police procedural. It is a mystery, and he does, the murder happens, which you just heard about, and he starts tracking down who done it, who did it. And the way he finds out is very long and complicated and takes many, many turns, but he gets there in the end. He does get sort of suspended and a few other things, because the people whom he comes in contact with trying to find out are very high powered people, like the super dancers and the powerful people in the city. So that's, I think, the main difference is the structure, the way it is. It's a different kind of a story. It's police procedural.
So Caro, can you hear me all right now?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, Ed has fixed it. Thank God. This is my resident tech support, Ed, my husband. Thank goodness.
Oh, they do come in handy, don't they?
Yeah. Occasionally, yes. So Caro, did you want to ask our first prize question, or would you like to do that?
If I can find a first prize question here. Where's this first prize question?
We kind of gave it away already, but we can still do it.
Well, never mind. We'll do it. Because, okay, so this one is, what is the name of another race that we meet in the novels besides the Merculians? See who was paying attention.
Yeah, and if you're familiar with the chat function in Zoom, just write your answer in chat, and whoever gets the right answer first is the winner.
Then spelling doesn't count.
And spelling, it's okay.
It doesn't count about the spelling. Oh, Rosemary.
So we have several answers. We have Abalon is one answer. We have Terrans for another.
Oh, yeah.
Humans for a third.
Okay, so who was there first?
Marilyn with Abalon.
Okay. Well, that's true. They're not in this book, but they are there. So the Abulonians, they are.
So Marilyn is the winner.
Great.
Congratulations. Okay.
Okay. Yippee.
Thank you.
Okay.
I hope.
So,
Yes.
Carol, I'm just going to digress, go back a bit, and actually ask about yourself as a writer, which is, how would you describe yourself? You write in so many different genres, and so how would you describe yourself as a writer?
Yes, I do, but I seem to stick in one for a while. So that's something. I mean, at the moment, so I'm writing this so-called science fiction. Anyway, these Merculian books. And so that's sort of the SF part. And I'm also writing, I guess, what you'd call literary fiction, which always bothers me because it sounds so hoity-toity, as though it really, But I don't mean it that way. I'm just trying to describe what it is. And that, for instance, is the one that I just mentioned, When the Tide Goes Out. And of course, this one, which is coming out soon, the 31st, actually, which is coming out from Inanna, Dancing with Chairs in the Music House, which is...
And can I just interject that I happily read an advance reader copy of it, and it is just beautiful. I just can't recommend it highly enough. I'm definitely going to read Marlo's Dance, and I know this is about Marlo's Dance. But I just want to say, Dancing with Chairs in the Music House, it's one of my favorite books I've read this year, Caro. It's just so beautiful.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear.
I fell into it, and you guys are going to love it. It's really just a journey. Vanessa, anyway, I could go on about it, and I'm not going to do that because this is about Marlo's Dance, but you guys are in for a treat.
I'm so glad you brought this up, Lisa, because I really want to put a plug in for Inanna, because there's going to be another meeting of Inanna authors. It's going to be on November the 19th. Am I getting that right, Lisa? I think it's at 7 o'clock on.
Yes, and Caro and I'll be launching with 2 other authors. And I'm also just waiting for the books to be available, and then I'm going to send out the invitation, because I would like to send it with a link so people can purchase Caro's and our books. Just mentioning that in advance, and so that's why the invitations haven't gone out. But yes, it is the 19th, and usually they start at 6 o'clock, so they're quite sort of an early thing, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Is it 5?
Yes,
Anyway.
yes. Caro is correct. It's 5. Yeah, sorry. Exactly.
Awesome.
But
awesome.
yeah, you guys are in for a treat with Dancing with Chairs in the Music House. It's just really beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so nice to hear. Thank you.
And Caro, you've also written straight crime fiction too.
Yes, I did. I haven't for lately, but I guess Marlo is as close as I got to that, which is basically the same sort of thing, but with Marlo. Yes, what was it called? Drag Queen, the Court of Death. The one
That's right.
which was, I love that book. That was very interesting to me to write. And I think there's another one. Oh yeah, The Tangled Boy was another one.
The Tangled Boy. I remember The Tangled Boy. That was that your first crime fiction novel?
That was the first crime fiction one, yes. And it was very, very interesting. I find that I think the Tangled Boy was the first one, and I was writing a lot for quite a while and getting absolutely nowhere, as one does. And I read somewhere in the early days, you remember when we used to all read the books on writing and all that sort of thing, and I had tons of them. I read through them. And somewhere along the way, I read that it will take you 10 years to get published. Oh, pooh, I said, nonsense. I can do it, but I mean, heavens, I've read so many books. I can write one. What's the problem? Well, of course, it didn't work. It took me 9 years, so I figured, okay, I got it. The first book, I'll tell you something sort of fun. The first book I wrote was a Star Trek book.
Really? Was it like a fan fiction book, or was it?
No, it was a real. Well, I thought it was a start. That was back in the 80s when there was a whole string of novels, Star Trek novels. You might not know, but they weren't fan fiction. They were published by major publisher. I can't remember the name now, which one it was. But anyway, so I thought, well, this is great. I love Star Trek, and I had this great idea for the story. And I wrote it away, but of course I made one fatal error, as I tend to do when I do these things, because I can't seem to do anything according to rule. So I thought, I have this great character who happens to be Merculian. And that was my first Merculian character. And his name was, it's Odyssey Nathalie Benvolini, but his friends called him Benny because it was a lot easier than the long name. So Benny gets assigned to on board the, what's it all, the Star Trek ship.
Enterprise.
Thank you, the Enterprise. How could I forget that? He gets assigned there, and of course, it's one of those fish out of water stories, because here he is, this very small and very emotional character who really is not scientific, but I mean, he managed to get through the academy by the skin of his teeth because his parents wanted him to go, so he went, and it was just hell. It was terrible. But anyway, so he's on there. So that was, and they go through, it's more like a picaresque sort of thing. They go through 3 adventures, and I can't remember what the whole overarching thing was. But anyway, that was my first novel. And those were the days when you sent the manuscripts off and all the rest of it, and I sent it off. And I got this lovely rejection letter back, which is framed on the wall of my office upstairs, from Paramount Pictures, Star Trek, right across the top of the letterhead, saying, you know, thank you so much, the usual for that they used to say, for sending us your interesting manuscript. However, it doesn't quite work for us at this time, you know, the way they used to do this sort of thing. But it was very nice. They actually managed a whole paragraph, more than just a couple of. So, I mean, you wouldn't get that nowadays from anybody. But that was my first novel. So then and it really wasn't a novel at all, I now realize, but you know, what the heck. And it was also the birth of the Merculians, because I kept thinking about Benny and sort of, where did he come from, and what was his people, what were people like? And it took a while to sort of get back to him, but I did eventually. So I can't remember what the question was, but anyway.
It was actually, I was actually going to ask you to tell us about the very first novel you wrote, but you have a background in literature. Am I right? And in creative writing. So how did you end up writing speculative fiction? Was it because you were a Trekkie?
Well, that's what started that one, I think. My background is actually languages. It isn't English lit, like a lot of people are, but that's mine. So Benny's specialty at that point was languages, was alien languages. So I thought I'll throw that in. And in the original, he loved Latin, but I thought, okay, that's going too far. We'll just lose that. That's a little too recherché. So we lost that. But anyway, I think probably it was because I wanted to write about certain things, but unlike a lot of writers who start writing about their own lives right away, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep it as far away as possible from me. And now, of course, I've gone completely the other way with Dancing with Chairs, which is quite autobiographical, a lot of it.
Oh, really? So did you live in Europe when you were young?
I did for a short time, yes. But the Dancing with Chairs is in Toronto.
I see.
Yeah. Anyway, 519 Jarvis Street. Never mind.
And so did you live in it? Did you live in that house? Is that house taken from your childhood?
Oh, yes. I wasn't there long, mind you, but nevertheless, and it wasn't, of course, the plot wasn't like that, but oh yes, all those people were there.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So never mind, we're supposed to be talking about Marlo?
Right, we are. We absolutely are. And so my next question is, like, do you have a favorite character besides Marlo?
Oh, well, of course, I love Marlo, but my favorite character is probably Triani.
Probably.
Yes, it definitely is. He definitely is my favorite, who's a sort of hot-tempered, oversexed, and overbearing character who just is extremely egotistical. But you can't understand why people get mad at him. Because of course, nothing's ever his fault. He wasn't there. So of course, well, you were supposed to be there. Never mind, I wasn't. I really, really quite love him. And I think quite a few people say that they enjoy him. I mean, they certainly wouldn't like him as a person particularly, but he's a fun character and he's very funny, can be sarcastic.
So could you give us another reading? There's a coffee scene.
Oh, yes. Well, some of you may have heard this before because I did a reading, but you know, this is it. It's quite short as well. Now, just a quick sort of background about this. Boothby, who was the one who we met right at the beginning, in that little short scene that I read, she actually falls for Marlo. She has a real soft spot for him, so she keeps hanging on to him. And anyway, she is still here, and she is the one who's in this scene, the other one besides Marlo herself. And Marlo is sort of down, and she says, well, you know, when I'm sort of running out of steam, I like to go and have a cup of coffee. He doesn't know anything about coffee. He says, well, what's that? And he said, well, oh, I'm sure. Okay, well, I'll try that. So he goes with her. She takes him down to the coffee house in the expat district of the city. So this is what happens. There you go. Boothby slid a cup and saucer along the table in front of him. There was a small mountain of whiteness floating on top. Marlo dipped his finger in it, put it in his mouth, and smiled. Wonderful, he breathed. That's sweetened whipped cream, Boothby said. Ricky said Merculians usually like it in coffee. This one does, Marlo said, smacking his lips. As Marlo launched enthusiastically into his first cup of the delicious coffee, Boothby began to talk about her latest sleuthing efforts. I think we need to talk to that stagehand, she said, leaning over the table, her cup in both hands. I was checking the surveillance again, and I noticed one of them was outside for a while, but then when he came back in, it was through another door. I interviewed the stagehands, Marlo said, wiping sugar off his cheek. I know you want to help, but really, we're moving along just fine. We have experience in these things. He buried his nose in the coffee cup again and drank the last of it. It's very good, he said, sitting up. I'll get you another one. Thanks. In a few moments, she was back with another savory cup. He dove in at once. She kept on talking, but he wasn't paying attention anymore. A strange, warm energy was seeping all through him. He began to hum to himself, licked the sides of the coffee cup, getting the last of the cream. So good, he said, so good. He began to sing, at first softly, then building, until he suddenly stood up on his footstool and aimed for the back row as his choral teacher instructed. Boss, you better sit down. I need more coffee, Marlo said, swaying unsteadily from side to side. Sorry, buddy, you're cut off. Rick, the owner, loomed up over Marlo and took his cup away. Another Merculian who can't hold his coffee, he said disgustedly. If you give me more, I'll hold it, shouted Marlo. He fell back into the armchair and began to laugh. For God's sake, Rick, do something, cried Boothby. He's a regulator. Serve him right for raiding this place last month. That wasn't his unit. He's homicide or whatever they call it. Come on, Rick, do something. You mean hermicide, right? Ha! Threw back his head and roared with laughter. Yeah, very funny. Well, I can give him my hangover treatment. It really works on them, but he'll probably get a headache, provided he'll even drink it. Just put whipped cream in it and he'll drink anything, she said, looking at Marlo worriedly. Let's go to your place, Marlo said suddenly. He winked. Oh, God, that's not a good idea. Do you have any coffee at your place? Listen, Rick is making you a nice new drink. After you drink it, we have to leave. Like it here, Marlo jumped up, almost lost his balance, then began to sing again. But one foot slipped and Boothby managed to catch him just in time. The body contact sobered Marlo a little. He straightened up, leaning one hand on the table. So sorry, Boothby dear. You do smell good, he added. Rick came weaving his way back through the tables, a small glass heaped with whipped cream on a tray. Here you go, bottoms up, Charlie. Just toss it back, boss. Marlo saw the whipped cream and did as he was told. Of course, he doesn't sober up right away, but nevertheless, he did eventually.
No. All right. I think it's time for a next prize question.
Oh, good
So,
idea. All
if
right.
people have, so everybody just write your answer again in the chat. And the second prize question is, I'm going to let Caro read that.
Name another character in Marlo's dance. Busy. Right.
Answers are coming in. Here we are.
I'm not allowed to participate.
No,
Okay.
you're
All right. Okay. We have two answers. One is Sala, and the other answer is Bar. Are they correct, Carol?
No, I don't recognize them.
Sally, S-A-L-I?
Oh, S-A-L-I, yes. How on earth did you remember that? Someone must have read the book. Hey.
Yes, okay. So we have a winner, and the answer is, the correct answer is from Jane Burfield. Okay.
Oh, good for you. Okay. And you can tell me which book you want, because you've already got the other one, I think.
So, well, Carol, we have a question actually from the audience,
Oh, good.
and which is they want to know how many books you've written, because you're incredibly prolific. I mean, you have 2 books coming out just this year,
That
and you're
just
already working on another 2. And so how many have you for your whole career? How many books have you written altogether?
I think it's 15 novels, maybe it's 16, and a whole bunch of anthologies, which I've edited, and a bunch of short stories in other people's anthologies. And I think there's 3 collections of short stories. Now, some of this is under another name, by the way,
Okay.
but, and there's another collection of short stories or 2. I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there were long periods of sort of fallow ground. I mean, around the end of the 80s, I sort of ran out of steam and couldn't sort of write for a bit. And that's when I sort of threw myself into starting Bloody Words and all that sort of thing, which of course got me all charged up again. So I started writing again. So it didn't last for long, but it did sort of, you know, one does get written out occasionally.
Yeah, so let's move on to sort of talk about your actual process of writing a book. So how do you, when do you write, and how do you, I've gone to one of your excellent lectures where you talk about, where you mapped out how to plot a novel. So
Oh, yeah.
is this how you do it? Or anyway, tell us your process a little bit.
Well, it starts out, I'm more interested in character, you know, and this is one of the problems that took me 9 years to get published, because my plotting was somewhat vague. And my characters have always been, I think, quite strong, but, you know, they have to eventually do something. But I start out with an idea of a situation, perhaps, that I want to look at. For instance, I just got another idea for a Merculian novel, which I really don't want to write, but nevertheless, it's there, about finding a charred body in which they cannot identify even what race it is, whether he's, you know, Merculian or Terran or anything, that sort of thing. So that's going to go into a notebook. I start with the notebook by hand, you know, nice, expensive notebooks. The more expensive, the better, for some reason or other. They seem to enthuse me and inspire me. So I start writing about the characters, who they are and what their background is and all that sort of thing. And I just, sometimes it's just sort of free writing about, I'll discover that I'm thinking of 2 characters, and a discussion comes up and dialogue starts and it starts to move. But then finally, when I sort of think of, I often have the opening scene as well. And then I'll start to write, and I'll think about the opening scene. I think of what the key scenes will be in the story. I don't always have the ending at all. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. In Marlo's Dance, I didn't when I started. And I just sort of went and got the sort of the first big major thing that happened. First of all, you get the inciting incident, you get the major thing that happens. And then usually I think of the midpoint, because the midpoints for me are usually, I find especially in the Merculian novels, tends to be a big dramatic scene, like I think it's in The Colony Dancers, then the next book, which will come out next year. The middle scene is a wedding, which takes 3 days and it takes 3 chapters, and it's all very exciting. And I thought that would be something I really wanted to do. So that's basically the way it is. I think of the kind of the kind of idea I have decides what kind of a book it's going to be, obviously. And because I have another idea for a book, which is basically about friendships between women that don't always work out the way you think they're going to. So I sort of know that's not going to be a really genre book, I don't think, unless one of them kills somebody. Who knows? They might. So I think that's not particularly useful, perhaps, for anybody else, but it's the way it works for me most of the time, with a lot of notes and then just writing and just jumping in, because you can really spend a lot of time worrying about how to start and basically just start, or you're not going to get anywhere.
I would agree with you. I did that. I don't know how many people here have done NaNoWriMo, but I've done it a couple of times now. And I think one time I just wrote, and it's just really, I didn't write to order. I didn't write for a novel, but a lot of the material that I actually generated through this I used later on in other works. And I think sort of that whole process of just writing and just freeing your mind, it just sort of unleashes creativity. What do you think?
I agree. Now, on the other hand, when the first the first novel that I sold, I finally realized that I was too ambitious. The ideas I had were too ambitious. I didn't have the technique to do it. And this was in my 9-year period. So I thought more about a genre kind of thing. I needed a framework to hang things around, and that worked. So I thought, boy, this is great. I sort of discovered how useful genre can be. And that was The Mutual Understanding, was the first one that I sold. And then came the Tangled Boy, which also was genre. So that was helpful. Now, not so much, because I've got hopefully better technique. And of course, by the time you write that many, publish that many novels, you hopefully know something. Although every book is different, and every book you sort of get half of the way through it, and I get lost. And 2/3 of the way, I have no idea how to sort of wind things up. And it happens, according to Nancy, it happens with every novel, because I'm always moaning about it. But anyway, I get there.
Right. So you see genre can be both confining and liberating, but it might be confining at one stage in your career and then maybe liberating at another stage in your career.
To sort of give a framework. As you know, in a mystery, you have to have a murder and you have to have certain things happen. And in a love story, that you have to have certain things happen. It's useful. Although I must say, my efforts at writing a Harlequin were not particular.
You have a funny story. You have a funny story about that, about writing a Harlequin. So tell us about that.
Oh, I'm sure you've all heard it. But anyway, well, I thought, okay, this isn't getting anywhere. And a friend of mine who loved Harlequins, even though she had a PhD in English, she just loved them. She said, "You're always writing about relationships, and that's all it is." Oh, I said, fine, I'll do that. So I wrote one. Took a while, but I did one. And I sent it in. And I got this letter back, saying those were the days of actual letters coming back. This letter came back saying, very stiffly, "It is obvious that you have never read one of our novels. However, we like your writing. And so I'm sending over by courier some of our novels for you to read." So, of course, our hero was a ballet dancer. This was not a good plan. Anyway, and I think he had a gay roommate. That was also not a good plan.
No.
So anyway, I started reading these things. I thought, oh my God, was I ever completely off track about it? And I did write another one, being really careful. And I made it, except they said, well, this is much more like it, they said. And by this time I was getting phone calls. And she said, the only thing is, we've had too many land developer heroes lately. Damn. I said, so write another one. Well, so I tried the third one. And by this time I was getting so upset about the balance of power in these things, which seemed very odd to me, that it was this sort of dominant, submissive thing happening, which is why I thought I'm going to write one I want to do myself, just using the same way of, the dominant submissive thing, which changed, the power dynamic thing. So of course I did it with two men, and they had a lot of sex, and it turned into my best-selling book of all time,
Which was?
Initiation of PB 500, which was also, it was a gay S&M story, basically. And it's sold very well, still is selling. Not as well, of course, but now we're on to the next generation, and it was very unusual in its time because it was on another planet, except they were males. They were just men there. And so nobody done that before. So anyway, that's what happened when I tried to write a Harlequin. So, that genre, that was an idea of the constrictive idea of genre.
Okay. We have a question from the audience about what was the other name that you wrote under?
Oh. Well, Kyle Stone, but you don't want that. That's all. It's basically pornography is what it is, but it's very good pornography, I'll tell you that.
Well, if it's still selling, it's got to be, right? I guess that's really awesome. So tell us, is there another well, you have writing two Mercurial books coming, and one is coming next year in 2021. And do you have a title for it?
Yeah. And the third, the third Marlo book, this is a Marlo book too. I mean, he's in it. And the third one is called The Painted Garden at the moment. I might change that, but I don't think so. Marlo's Painted Garden. And I'm still slogging away through that one. So this might take a while. Mm.
Well, what books are you working on now? So are you working on more than one book, or are you doing them one at a time?
I used to work on several at once, but now I really cannot, walk and chew gum or whatever the expression is. Multitasking is just not for me anymore. So I am finishing this one, but I'm also thinking about this one, which I mentioned, When the Tide Goes Out, about a woman and her gay friend who go back to her holiday home down in New Brunswick, in the Bay of Fundy, thinking everything's going to be just so lovely. And of course it isn't. But that is what version is written. So I'm not sort of worried too much about that. I just have to get at it when all this other stuff is finished. So that's that. Anybody have any more questions? Wait a minute.
We have one more prize question, and then I'm going to open up the floor to questions. And the third question, I'm going to let Caro read that one too.
This, I don't know. This isn't really fair unless you've read the book, but I'll do it anyway. So how many names do Merculians have usually? Unless you were listening very hard, you wouldn't really get this unless you've read the books. So that wasn't really quite fair. However, nobody knows, do they?
We have two answers. One answer is 4 and one answer is 15.
15, that's a guess.
It's a total guess. I'm a person who went to my third year English exam, and I didn't actually read the set work. I think it was the George Eliot. What was it, Middlemarch? And I hadn't read the book, but I wrote an essay on it. So yeah, I really wanted to win the book, but no, the 15 was me just guessing like my Middlemarch. So.
Oh, that work. Well, I know I did the same thing in graduate school and wrote an essay on Don Quixote, and having read only half of it. Oh, God, it's awful.
At least you'd read half of it. I hadn't read anything. It was so embarrassing.
And the other answer we have is 4.
Well, that's closer. Actually, some of them do have 4 names, so I guess I can accept that, because the cliffside. From the cliffside.
So that our winner is Rosemary McCracken.
Oh, Rosemary, haven't you read it already?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, so that's how you.
Does that discount me? Does that discount me?
Well, no, but you could have, some of the others, because you've already got that. Anyway, you can email me and let me know what you want.
Okay, so I'm just going to open up the floor to questions, and you can either unmute yourself and ask Caro directly, or you can write them in the chat file, whatever you prefer.
Well, I have a question. Yes. So Caro, did you dance? Like, are you a dancer? This is maybe something I should know.
Oh, yeah, that's the funny thing. I mean, I didn't realize until I was making out a list of publication works, and I've got 4 books with dance in the title. I thought, this is ridiculous. No, I can't dance at all, but I'm a real aficionado of dancing and ballet and whatnot, and sort of have been sort of going to performances all my life and sort of, trying, but really, it was just, my school was a sort of a Scottish school. They thought they were Scottish themed. And we used to do Scottish country dancing and Highland and things. And, I used to feel like a heffalump, because I could do that because, you can't miss that rhythm, So that, but no, unfortunately, but I just love it. And I think it's the combination of the movement and the music, because I love music so much. And,
You did Highland dancing. You could actually do the Highland dancing.
well, this is a very muted version of what it would be. It was a girls' school,
Nothing but cross swords.
Well, I think we had tennis rackets or something. I don't know. Crossed. Anyway, it was fun.
My daughter did Highland dancing
Oh,
and Irish dancing. Yes. She still does Irish dancing.
Oh, that is so.
Sort of, yes.
Wow.
That's strenuous.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love it. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. So am I. I can't help it.
I learned the sword dance when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
We danced for over 9 years.
Oh,
But I had to dance the sword dance.
Yeah.
aha.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Watch your toes on that one.
learned that one.
We had to use yardsticks.
Yeah, yeah.
She never got to use a sword.
Neither did we.
Swords that were crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blunt.
But-
Carol, I'm not a dancer, but I wrote about dance for a long time
That's
at
right.
the Calgary Herald
Mhm.
and other
Yeah.
publications. So I know a little bit about it just from what I've gleaned. When you write about it, you have to learn about it. And the people drove me crazy in the dance world.
Yeah.
And they were, and your book reminded that you've got them all right there. You've got them all. That prima ballerina, the guy with the Traverdi.
Triani, yeah.
Like
Just
you've just got them beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
They drove me up the wall. I mean, they are so into their appearances, and they gain an ounce of weight, and but it's lovely reading about them as long as you don't have to deal with them. And
Yes.
so I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the people in the book. They're not humans, but they are so human.
Yeah.
And you've got the dance world like just down there to the
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Actually, can I segue from that then?
Sure, why not?
Rosemary, you said they're very human. I find Marlo is every man.
Oh yeah.
How many of us, our blouses sort of strain across us, or we drop something on us, or we have to run and we kind of tramp along and kind of waddle. So, Caro, did you mean? See, I'm surprised because I never asked Caro this. Did you intentionally make Marlo an everyman?
No, it actually didn't occur to me until you mentioned it just this minute. That I guess I was just giving him the carelessness which the others lacked. He's careless because he doesn't care. I mean, Rosemary was talking about how the dancers are so aware of how they look all the time and all the rest of it. He
Mm.
couldn't care less, as you know, he picks things up off the floor, he puts them on, he can't find his belt and, all this kind of stuff. And things don't match and all this kind of thing. And I hadn't thought of that, but I suppose, yes, it certainly sounds, you could describe him that way. Why not? Sounds good to me.
Hide the streets away and then can't find them.
Oh, that's true. Well, I mean, I do.
He's something like Columbo too.
Yeah.
I mean, the Columbo always looks like he slept in that raincoat of it.
True, yeah.
And he's a perfect foil for the beautiful self-absorbed dancer.
Yes, yeah. He can't figure them out. He never sees them eat. Can't understand it. They drink a lot, though.
Okay, if there are any more questions, one last question I think we can take, and then
Caro, you said that you write character, and so it was difficult to sort of learn to inject plot. Is there a character waiting inside you, waiting for an outlet, waiting for a book?
Well, that's there's several, but I'm trying to sort of just not listen because I've got too much to do right now. I've got to finish the next Merculian book. I want to finish the When the Tide Goes Out book. And then, of course, there's this women's friendship book, which has been in a notebook for far too long and it keeps wanting to get out. So, it's there and they're all there. And this is about betrayal and all that sort of thing. But not now, no. So don't even mention it.
well, I mean, Caro, I'm just in total awe. Like, you're so prolific, and you write. You're such a broad range of genres, everything. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. It's been a wonderful evening talking to you, and I want to.
I'm just going to say, writing a wide range of genres is not appealing to one's agent. Let me tell you.
Really?
At all, they don't like that at all. They want you to hit something and keep at it because, do a series of whatevers and stay there and get known for that, And I mean, it makes sense. I don't know whether really successful writers don't do what I do, but I just do it because this is the way I want to do it. So.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's absolutely amazing you write in all these different genres. And so I just want to put a plug in again for the Inanna book launch, which is going to be at 6 o'clock. Am I right, Lisa? That's on
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Talk.
Yes, 5 o'clock.
To fix that.
5 o'clock, and that is on Thursday,
November the 19th.
And then we're also, the Mesdames are also going to be hosting a book discussion with Caro and Lisa and our new member, Melissa, when Innes, on November the 28th. And we're still working on that. And we haven't decided the time, but the date is firm. And so that would be a Saturday, November the 28th. So we're still working out the details for that. It's still a month away. But you're all very much invited to join us then, and just check back on the Madame of Mayhem website, and that will for all the details. I just want to say a huge thank you to my co-host Donna Garrick, who's saved our bacon. That's why we have a co-host on these events, for the technical difficulties. This is the first time that's happened.
I had some technical difficulties of my own, as you can see.
Oh dear.
I was not pulling a Tubin.
And I think Jane had a technical difficulty with her kitty cat.
Oh, yes.
Wandered in. And but yeah, this is why you have a co-host for these Zoom events. And I want to say a huge thank you to Donna for helping out and taking over here. Our last plug of the evening is that several of us got stories in the Garrick Publishing's latest crime fiction anthology, A Grave Diagnosis. And we are having, and appropriately enough, our launch is going to be at 2:00 on Halloween, Saturday, October the 31st. And since Rob Ford in his non-wisdom has decided to cancel Halloween for Toronto, you can come and see us instead. So
Yes, yeah, absolutely. 2:00. And anybody who wants the Zoom invitation, email me at carrickpublishing@rogers.com, and I will be happy to get you the Zoom invitation and passcode. And I would love to see you all at 2. And I will be using my better technology that day. So.
I
I want to thank
you to come as a pirate. You can see from the Bell's palsy. Down to my smile.
you can definitely come as a pirate, and your kitty cat can come as a parrot.
That's an idea.
Yeah,
That's an idea.
exactly. I know a couple of people are planning to dress up for the Halloween launch, so that would be great. I want to thank Madeleine and Caro because this was really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for helping out,
Yes.
and to Madeleine too. I mean, this is
thank you, Caro.
I'm
Thank
really
you.
looking forward to reading the book. So congratulations, Caro. You are one of my literary heroes always. So since we met at Bloody Words, and you just always wow me. I just want to say that. So I look forward to reading Marlo's Dance a lot. So
good. Write reviews, people.
Yes.
Write reviews.
Yes.
We will write reviews, everybody.
Amazon, come on.
I'm looking forward to reading it.
Oh, good.
Yes, so am I.
And
Good night,
I-
everyone.
okay. Good night, and thanks for coming.
Good night.
Thank
Thank you.
you, Madeline. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Caro. Nice seeing you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 A dusty road, a man alone. His vital signs go on hold. And I don't know what you've been told, but the years have turned my eyes gold. And I told you what you told me, we'd never be in the same boat for free. Yet it rides, let it rock.